let's talk retro gaming for a moment.
Rocket Knight Adventures, released in 1993, was a game that spawned off the rise of animal mascot titles that tried to follow in the footsteps of Sonic the Hedgehog. Rocket Knight Adventures was one of the few titles that tried something different, something other than being a mammal or otherwise with an attitude. The main selling point was that you were a sword-wielding knight with a jetpack who happens to be an opossum called Sparkster. It was a big deal at the time. Not many games are able to incorporate a jetpack that's useful to gameplay. Instead of being a tacked-on gimmick, you use the jetpack to your advantage to gain higher ground, cross chasms and ricochet off walls. This added tons of exploration, all the while slashing enemies with your sword that shot energy. It was fun, challenging, and even had a comic book tie-in in the UK Sonic the Comic. In 1994 came Sparkster, Rocket Knight Adventures 2. Though mostly the same game, one of the biggest differences was the jetpack. It charged automatically and quickly, I might add, and gave Sparkster the ability to drill boost once the second level of charge was full. While useful at times, it's overpowered and can be set off when picking up boosters. The sword lost its energy from the last game, and a random gem-powered slot machine was added, which on occasion dropped bombs. Though still unique, it was a less than stellar sequel. Also in 1994 was Sparkster for the Super Nintendo. Even though it was the same name as its Mega Drive counterpart, it's an entirely different game and acts more like a spin-off rather than a sequel. Sparkster played closer to its predecessor, but added a quick slash to the L and R buttons, which was helpful in a lot of instances. It was really one of the two Sparkster games to own, and it has been said that it was a byproduct of an abandoned SNES port of Rocket Knight Adventures.
So that leaves us with the latest installment, Rocket Knight, developed by Climax Studios. Yes, that Climax Studios that kinda ruined Silent Hill but maybe redeemed themselves with Shattered Memories. That's a story for another day though. The question is, does this revival make up for the 15-year gap? Well, both yes and no.
The game starts off with Sparkster witnessing the invasion of the Wolf Kingdom and thus dons his jetpack armor to do what's right. The entire story is told through non-descriptive cutscenes at the end of every world, as well as a text description on every loading screen. It involves Axel, who takes the credit for defending Sephiroth and convinces the townsfolk into letting the Pig Kingdom lead the charge against the wolves. After the fall of the Wolf King, General Swinehart begins his invasion of Sephiroth. The story is not up to much, as it's a basic stop the bad guy routine that tries to be self-aware, as Swinehart has been planning this invasion for 15 years. Right off the bat, we're given a tutorial in the first level, teaching us the basics: jump, attack, and boost. New to Sparkster's arsenal is a short hover and a projectile attack that doesn't go far. You'll be using this one the least. Most of these take up a portion of the boost meter that recharges at a steady pace. This is a good idea, as it cuts out the time needed to charge a boost in the original. Being an opossum, Sparkster can also hang from poles and boost beam to greater heights. For the most part, the controls are really tight and responsive. Boosting all over the place to find hidden gems is fun, but the combat feels a little unpolished. More often than not, the enemy will hit me before I hit them. In some levels, we're soaring through the skies in a 2D shooter mode, shooting, charge blasting, and collecting gems while avoiding obstacles. There's not really much to say about these levels. Seeing how there's only 3 of these levels in the entire game, they're rather bland and easily forgettable. But what's a platform game without boss fights? And they're pretty easy. The only boss fights that are any challenge are the final 2, Axel Gear and General Swinehart, only because they're in the air. The rest can be easily exploited, such as the Forest Shredder, jump up and boost into his face. The game follows a standard formula, except for level 2-3, where your jetpack can't recharge because of the ice. Up until halfway through the game, where the difficulty has been steady, there's a sudden spike. All the enemies take twice as many hits to kill, and the level design has more death pits and obstacles. Speaking of the level design, despite being linear, these levels are huge, giving us a reasonable amount of exploration to find red gems, health, and lives. But again, as soon as you get to level 3-1, the pig bunker, it becomes claustrophobic. But I don't hate it because some of the obstacles, such as the lasers and teleporters, offer variety and a decent challenge. The presentation is okay. Nothing inherently wrong, there's some depth to the levels, plus the platforms and characters are distinguishable, but it comes off rather bland. The graphics are standard with the occasional comic style blasts, and the characters' expressions as well as their body language are barely noticeable until the camera zooms in close enough to see. The music is completely forgettable except for level 1-1 and the credits theme, which is an orchestral version of the music from Rocket Knight Adventures. But here's the clincher as to why it's hard for me to recommend Rocket Knight. It's too short and easily forgettable. You can complete this game within an hour. Seriously, it's an achievement. which doesn't make up for its price point. Plus, when writing this review, I had to rewatch older recorded footage, which is my second playthrough by the way, just to know how many air levels there were and where the ice level took place.
Don't get me wrong, this is not a bad game. What there is good, but it doesn't stick with you as long as you think it would. So unless you've played Rocket Knight Adventures or even the two Sparta titles, you'll more than likely pass this game up due to the price tag alone. So unless you're looking for a game with an animal mascot that wields a sword and flies around on a jetpack, then I can recommend Rocket Knight. Other than that, it's only for the most curious of players.
I rate this game 5.5 out of 10.